There's a stretch of road in Alaska that runs nearly 1,500 miles from the port town of Kenai up to Prudhoe Bay, and almost nobody outside the trucking industry has ever heard of it, let alone driven it alone through an Arctic winter. Lisa Kelly has made that exact run more times than she can probably count, and long before most viewers ever learned her name, she was already doing it for a living. This video looks at what actually happened to the woman who became the breakout star of Ice Road Truckers, why she stepped away from television, and what her life and her job look like right now, years after the cameras stopped rolling. Ice Road Truckers turned long-haul winter driving into appointment television for years, and Lisa was a major part of why audiences kept coming back season after season. Ice Road Truckers spent 2 full seasons on the air before Lisa ever appeared, and in all that time, no woman had driven for the show. The format itself was built around watching long-haul drivers cross brutal winter terrain across North America. And unlike most shows about vehicles, the cameras barely cared about engines or custom builds. What mattered was the driver, the cargo, and the very real danger of the job, since trucking consistently ranks among the most hazardous professions anywhere in the world. The cameras didn't only chase moments where everything could go wrong either, since plenty of screen time also went to the quieter, more ordinary parts of life on the road. When Lisa climbed into a cab for the first time on camera, nobody knew quite what to expect from her, and rookies on the show carried the not-so-flattering label of maggot until they proved themselves. She skipped that label almost immediately, and within her first season, she'd already earned the respect the show reserved for its top dogs, the seasoned drivers nobody questioned. She would go on to become the show's only female driver, a distinction that lasted for the rest of the series. Audiences responded to her almost instantly, since being the lone woman in a cab full of seasoned veterans gave the show built-in stakes it never had to manufacture. Across 8 seasons of Ice Road Truckers, Lisa built a reputation for staying calm under real pressure, and she rarely turned in a performance that fell short of what fans had come to expect from her. Storms, hairpin turns, and ice that could swallow a truck whole all became part of her routine, and she leaned on nothing but her own judgment and the machine underneath her to get through each run. Looking back at the show now, what stands out is how little drama actually came out of it. There was no blow-up between drivers, no manufactured feud, and no lingering resentment between cast members, which sets Ice Road Truckers apart from almost every other show built around a working crew. Part of that probably comes down to how the show was filmed in the first place, since the drivers rarely worked the same routes at the same time and had limited contact with each other off camera. Reality shows built around one crew sharing a single set tend to manufacture exactly that kind of friction for the cameras, and Ice Road Truckers simply never had the setup for it. That isolation didn't make the job any easier on Lisa personally, and after 3 consecutive seasons on the show, she chose to sit out season 6 entirely. The constant filming, the travel, and the non-stop attention around her work had become exhausting, and rather than show up and turn in something half-hearted, she decided to take the time away instead. She's since explained that the decision came after a conversation with her husband, when the two of them realized that filming and travel had limited their time together to just 9 days across 6 months. That break gave her exactly what she needed, because she came back for season 7 fully recharged and ready to get behind the wheel again. Lisa filmed her final season of Ice Road Truckers back in 2017, and in the years since, she's largely disappeared from television. Like most of her former castmates, who've mostly faded out of public view altogether, very little about her life after the show ever surfaced publicly, aside from one interview she gave to the trucking publication Overdrive. During her years on the show, she drove for a company called Carlisle and worked primarily across Alaska, but that arrangement has since changed. In that interview, Lisa, now 41 years old, confirmed she's left Carlisle behind and signed on with a different logistics company. The route, though, never changed, since she's still running the same haul from Kenai to Prudhoe Bay that made her recognizable on the show in the first place. That single trip covers roughly 1,500 miles, and depending on conditions, it can take her anywhere from 30 to 35 hours to finish one run start to finish. Most of the time, she's doing it completely alone, the same way most truckers work that particular route. Some drivers split the job with a partner instead, trading off behind the wheel so the truck never has to stop just because one of them needs sleep. And the trucks themselves usually come built with a small sleeper cabin in back for exactly that purpose. Lisa still tends to run it solo, leaning on the same independence and self-reliance that made her stand out on the show years earlier. She hasn't lost touch with everyone from her Ice Road Truckers days either. She still runs into Todd Dewey, a logger she worked alongside on the show. And she occasionally crosses paths with Jack Jesse and Phil Crom while she's out on the road, both of whom are still driving for Carlisle. Lisa's also noticed real changes in the conditions she's working in now compared to her years on television. The snow, by her account, sticks around longer than it used to, with some of the lakes along her route still frozen solid as late as April, which likely means more available work and a bigger paycheck, but also a longer stretch of dangerous driving and added stress along with it. On the brighter side, she's pointed out that the government has steadily paved and reinforced sections of the route over the years, making certain stretches noticeably safer than they were when cameras were still following her. Her equipment has changed just as much as her employer. These days, Lisa drives a Freightliner Coronado, a truck that shares its engine with the Freightliner Cascadia, but carries far less bodywork underneath, which matters a great deal when the ground itself is frozen solid and ready to tear into anything hanging too low. Back when cameras were still rolling, viewers mostly saw her behind the wheel of various Kenworth trucks, which remain some of the most common Class A rigs used on the ice roads to this day. Stepping away from the show didn't end Lisa's public life, it just changed its shape. She started getting invited to trucking exhibitions across the United States and Canada, which gave her a direct line to the fans the show had built for her over the years. Her name recognition also opened the door to brand partnerships, most visibly a run of advertisements for Chevron's Delo. And she's since spent time touring North America doing fan meetups at events like Diesel Fest and the Great American Truck Show. She even runs her own eBay shop selling merchandise with her name on it, and that merchandise reportedly sells out fast, which says a lot about how loyal her fan base has stayed even with the show off the air for years. Away from trucking, Lisa spends her downtime back home in Alaska, where she keeps and rides horses and has taken up mounted archery, which is exactly as demanding as it sounds. She's also adopted a minimalist approach to her personal life, built around the idea that owning less actually creates more freedom, and it isn't hard to connect that mindset to a job built around long stretches alone in a truck cab with very little to do but think. As for whether Ice Road Truckers itself ever comes back, Lisa has been fairly clear that the show was never actually canceled, just put on hiatus. There's no sign of any legal dispute or falling out between cast and crew that would explain why it hasn't returned. What changed everything instead was the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, which froze a huge number of television and production projects across the industry, Ice Road Truckers apparently included. Whether the show ever comes back to screens is still an open question, and it isn't one Lisa gets to answer herself. She's made clear she'd welcome it happening again, but for now, that decision sits entirely outside her hands. Lisa Kelly, meanwhile, keeps doing what she's done for years regardless, climbing into a truck in Alaska and driving 1,500 miles through conditions most people will never have to face, camera crew or no camera crew.